Welcome to the third episode of our SGC series. In the previous video, we learned about the composition and structure of the School Governance Council, or SGC, and how to organize it. In this video, we will learn about the SGC's operations. Specifically, we will learn how meetings shall be called and scheduled and how often and where, who presides in each, as well as how these will be conducted. Other things we will learn about are how SGC decisions and resolutions are made, how decisions are documented and disseminated, the SGC's operating budget, storage of documents, external partnerships, and the limits of SGC authority. SGC meetings shall be held quarterly, although special meetings can be held for urgent concerns with approval from the school head. The specific date and time of the meeting should consider the convenience of the members, especially of the student representative. Meetings will be held in the school premises, but may also be held elsewhere for safety or other valid reasons. Meetings will be called for by the elected co-chairperson, and special meetings, however, may be called for by any of the co-chairpersons in consultation with the school head. Where both co-chairpersons are present, the elected co-chairperson shall preside over the meeting. If a special meeting must be held during the weekend or outside of school premises, the SGC must have prior written approval from the school's division superintendent. Notice of meetings for both regular and special meetings shall be issued by the secretary to all SGC members at least 1 week in advance. The quorum for any meeting to be held must be 50% of the total membership plus 1. Depending on the agenda, the SGC may invite resource persons to provide inputs and suggestions. How should SGC meetings be conducted? The minimum procedure is not too different from what we are likely familiar with. For guidance, however, we list down the steps. First, the elected co-chairperson calls the meeting into order. Second, the secretary checks attendance and determines if the quorum is satisfied. Third, the minutes of the previous meeting, if applicable, are read and approved. The secretary then reads out the agenda for the approval of those present. Next, the items in the agenda are discussed. This will take up the bulk of the meeting period. Other matters, if any, are discussed next. Finally, after all deliberations are done, the schedule of the next meeting is set and then the meeting is adjourned. The minutes of each meeting must be made available to the members within 2 weeks. Resolutions of the SGC shall be made by consensus, which is 2/3 of all members. The decision shall be put in writing, signed by SGC members, and posted on the Transparency Board. The secretary shall ensure that copies of the resolution are shared with internal and external stakeholders of the school. Implementation of the decision shall be referred to the committee or organization that has the mandate and authority to execute it. Who funds the SGC's operating expenses? The budget for meetings and other activities of the SGC shall come from the school operating budget and be subject to accounting and auditing. The SGC may also be supported by donor funding through grants, in line with existing policies on partnerships and donations. Partnerships are important in school governance. The SGC is, in fact, encouraged to identify potential partners and forge linkages with them. Once stakeholders indicate interest and willingness to support the school and its goals, they will be referred to the school head, who is authorized to formalize agreements. Agreements with partners can be a memorandum of agreement, a deed of donation, a deed of acceptance, among other types. SGC operations involve a fair amount of documentation. For proper record keeping and access, all SGC documents, resolutions, and minutes of meetings shall be stored and secured, including in digital formats, within the school premises by the secretary. From what we have learned so far, the SGC puts the school stakeholders in a good position to advocate for and create good change, as well as be responsive to issues and emerging needs. But there are limitations to its authority. First, the SGC shall not manage the school. That is the job of the school head. Second, the members must act as one entity and not individually. Third, the SGC must not act on its own, but do so with the school head. Fourth, the SGC must not enter into any transactions on behalf of the school. Fifth, all recommendations and resolutions of the SGC must conform with DepEd policy and consider the school's decision-making process. Sixth, the SGC must respect the school's mechanisms for grievances. Lastly, the SGC and its members must not disclose learner records and other confidential data. To recap the main points of this episode, SGC meetings will be held quarterly at the minimum and as needed. Scheduling of meetings must consider the availability of members, especially of student representatives. The elected co-chairperson will preside over meetings. If he or she is unavailable, the designated co-chairperson will preside. Resource persons may be invited for added input during meetings. SGC resolutions must be shared with all stakeholders. SGC operations will be funded from the school budget and, if possible, through donor grants. Creating linkages and partnerships with stakeholders for supporting the school are encouraged. All SGC documentation will be stored within school premises. There are limitations to the authority of the SGC. In the next part of this video series, we will be learning about the SGC as a structure for shared governance. Information about the SGC may be accessed through this link or on the DepEd BHROD page on Facebook.